Welcome to Abrez Around the House, and we're getting ready to do some layout on this deck skirting that we're undertaking, the last portion of the deck rebuild. First thing I'll be doing is making the marks for the treated 2x4s that I will be securing to the deck structure itself, and then pouring some concrete for them to hold them in place. This will serve two purposes. One is that it will create something that I can tie the skirting to that's solid. It will also provide a little bit more stability to the deck itself. Before I get too much further, I'm going to go ahead and work on the drainage system for the deck itself. The drainage system is for the Trex rain escape that I did earlier, which drains all of the water off of the deck and keeps it dry underneath. And to do that, I'm cutting this PVC in half, and I'll be staggering that to be able to catch the water and have a slight drop from where it starts until where it drains off to create the water flow. My neighbor Hubert here is helping me accomplish this task. Hubert is actually a retired plumber. Here you can see I put an end cap on there, and then we have used that PVC cement to secure the trough. You see the downspouts are dropping right into that trough. Go ahead and finish up the second portion of that, and then here's the finished product of the downspout from the trough itself. So right now I'm working on creating base for the skirting itself to rest upon. And so I've secured these 2x2s to the treated 2x4s, and that will give me something to rest the skirting on. And I do that all the way around the deck. Over here on this side, I will have to be leveling it in two separate 2x2s so that I can have something level to rest it on. Now for the panels themselves, we'll just have to carry a few loads from the truck to the backyard. So now I'm going to put down some rock in that area between the outside skirting and the interior portion of the deck support. It's about a 2-foot section, because eventually I will box in that interior part for storage. But I wanted to leave that other exterior portion open and free for humidity and the drainage system. applying some Flex Seal. This will help seal it up a little bit better, but it also, the black will help hide that drainage system that you won't see the white through those slats. So going on to measuring for these panels, I'm installing two 10-foot panels on the front here, and then I'll have a smaller panel for that angled step portion. Here I'm installing the exterior 1x that will match up with the 1x horizontal slats. So these will be the vertical slats that I'm putting on here, and then I will use the horizontal as the removable portion of the deck skirting. So ultimately, what I will have are these sections that I can easily remove when this is complete. I can simply take about 4 screws, maybe 5 or 6 screws out, and then remove that whole section if I need to get to anything in between. The corner is a little bit of a different setup here, but this is an example of a little bit of a brain fart whenever I was putting this on, and then realized that I needed to put the other 2x4 on before I put the trim on, so that the trim would match up on that corner. So I had to pull that 1x back off here after I measured and made sure that it was correct. So to make these little mistakes, you just have to go back and correct them and move on. The original frame, it's in the concrete, and then I built it out with a 2x4 here and then a 1x4 here. So what I'll do now is add a 2x2 to this back side, and that'll create a place for me to set in my panel. We'll have a 10-foot panel here, a 10-foot panel over there. So this is tied into the deck itself up here, and then the concrete down there, and then this rock here is just kind of buffer for the drain system. It's kind of a trough that's running across the top. So now we'll go ahead and add those 2x2s that the panels will sit up against and be screwed into for each panel. And I'm using screws on this that will give it more stability and support. So onto the panels, and I'll be working on this first 10-foot section, and I'm just trying to determine the best way to put this thing together, the joints, and whether to do it upright or laying on the ground. Just work through the details as you would normally do on a project that's going to have some repetition. So I decided to go ahead and try this on the ground first and determine where the center is for this center support. Go ahead and create the pocket hose using this Craig tool for that. So I'll be doing all the joints with the pocket holes. So now that I've created this frame, I realized that it didn't fit quite as well as I like, and so I tried it on the other section and it fit perfect, so I decided to go with that section. And then second thing on this is to go ahead and put the top and the bottom piece on to match the slats. Once I have done that, then I can pull it out and start adding each slat using a spacer that I've to keep that consistency of that width between each slat. And it really doesn't matter on this to be too precise, because I'm just going to cut off to match the top and bottom, as you'll see here in a second. And I do use glue, as you can see right there, construction glue for each slat as it's connected to those boards. I'll go ahead and use this 1x as a straight edge so I can line that up with the top and bottom, and then go ahead and cut that with my handsaw. Well, it's a new day and we'll start on this second section, and that will be a little bit easier because I have already created my line for the slats, and for the most part I just repeat the process from the previous day. You will notice that I'm doing something a little differently here, is that I'm working with it already up there in the upright position. It makes it a little easier to do, plus it is in the position that I want it to be in, and I know that it will fit, as opposed to doing it on the ground and then trying to bring it into place. So we'll go ahead and get the top and the bottom in place just like we did before, and that will create my line to work off of for the rest of the slats. This section here will be a little bit trickier, but it's actually a little more enjoyable because it's smaller and kind of brings into play a little bit more ingenuity, and so I enjoy this part. So I had to have something to connect it to, so that's what you see me doing there, adding those backer boards there, those 2x4s onto the stringers. And then I just have to kind of nibble away at this until I get the angle just right, and when I'm able to go ahead and start the process of getting all of these pocket holes in place for this angle piece. And so from here, it's just one board at a time, just working on getting the angle correct and making sure it's lined up with the other section. And see Lincoln there, that's my grandson, and he's enjoying some time out there with Pop Pop. And of course, Pop Pop's enjoying time out there with him. So now I can remove that panel and put it back into place. It definitely is a little bit awkward with one guy, but it's not light, that's for sure. Once that's into place, I go ahead and sand all of the edges of where I had sawed those horizontal slats, and then start applying some paint in between all the cracks. I did consider painting before I did this, but just became one of those things that got by me. It probably would have been good to go ahead and put paint on the edge of those boards before I installed them, but I forgot to do that, so this is my answer to that. And then I went ahead and rolled on the rest of this, and I will be coming back and spraying the whole thing again because I want to go inside as well and paint the interior portion of it later, but this is just kind of getting the finished portion of it done.
Hello, welcome to A-Brass Around the House. Today I'm going to be starting this final portion of the skirting for the deck. I've got two sections here. They're a little less than 8 foot per section, and I'm going to be doing a door, a gate I guess, or door over on this right side, and I'm working on some concrete so I can put the trash canisters, have a spot for those inside under the deck there. So that's what we're getting ready to start on. Hopefully that'll clean up this area a little bit and give me a nice little storage there for the trash cans, and give me a finished look on the outside with those doors. Let's get started.
So more trips to Home Depot and more wood to carry to the backyard. Then we're going to get started here, do a little cleanup, and I'm kind of clearing out right now for that section of concrete that I'm going to put in. So I'm marking that off here and starting the clearing and digging process of that. I am going to be using a dry pour method here, and there are plenty of videos out there for dry pours, much better than what I did on this one, but I did refer to a lot of dry pour videos before I started it. One thing about this is I did have pretty deep concrete, so I think on the deepest portion was about 8 or 9 inches, and the shallowest portion was probably about 3 or 4. So I'm just trying to get it a little bit level here and give me something flat to put the concrete in. And then I'm building some forms here for both the inside and the outside part of that concrete. So I'll have an inside portion, which you see I've already have the forms for there. And then this outside portion be kind of like a little bit of a step up into that area, so I can just roll them right into that interior portion. And so now for the real workout, and that's carrying all of these bags of concrete for my truck to this back area here. I forget how many bags that I used, but I want to say it was around 20 bags or so for all of this. So on this part here that I'm walking across, you see that metal mesh. I did that mainly because of the part that gets a little more shallow. And like I said, I think that part is about 3 inches there. And it does get pretty deep, but here you see me working that concrete across. And again, this is using some instructional videos from YouTube on how to do a dry pour. And the back, actually, the interior part really turned out a lot better than the outside part, and not quite sure why. Maybe it's just my patience. Here you see I started getting a lot of mosquitoes, and so I was trying to ward off the mosquitoes while I was working here. So part of doing dry pours is that you have to mist the concrete like every so often, depending upon how thick the concrete is. And this meant I started this kind of in the afternoon and it dragged on into the evening, so I was going outside all night long and misting this concrete pad here. So I almost, as I was doing it, I was really thinking, what am I saving here as far as time? Because I could have just mixed this and dropped it right into place and be done with it. But I wanted to try the method, and will I do it again? I don't think so, but to each his own. There are people out there that swear by it and do it all the time, but I don't think I'll be repeating it. This is the final section that will be a panel that I'll be able to remove. The other section will be over on that concrete side, will be doors, and I will assemble that as a section and cut the door in half so that I have a 2-part door. Go ahead and buzz through this pretty quick since you've seen it already a couple of times. Okay, this is the moment of truth. I'm removing the forms for the concrete. This is probably about a week later. I let them stay on there for a bit. We did receive a rain at some point during this as well. And It turned out pretty good. I was overall pleased with, that it was solid. I'm here kind of testing the edges, and there was a little bit of uh, crumbling portion that I just scraped off. And I'll probably come back later with some epoxy type cement to clean it up and give it a nice fresh smooth coat. So on the doors portion, I for the most part created it very similar to the rest of the panels, but the only difference was I made it to where the center had two 2x4s so that I could just cut it apart, and you see that right there. And I was using some bracing, trying to make sure that I did the correct bracing for the doors on the inside as well. And then I'll add all of the slats to it and then cut it in half and hopefully have a smooth install. It wasn't without its challenges. It was not exactly square, the area that I was putting it in. So there were some challenges to making sure that the horizontal slats would match. And it was a bit of a puzzle, but figured it out in the end. So this is what I was referring to before about having to make some adjustments to the door to make it match up. So here I'm just taking a slight bit off of the door at a bit of an angle here that you can see that I'm having to remove to square it up. I wouldn't recommend spray painting an area this large with canned spray paint, but that's what I did because I had some left over, and I'll come back again, like I said, with a full uh, coat of paint on this whole exterior, one more coat, and then the interior to give it a little bit of preservation. So here is the final look, and overall I got what I was looking for and was happy with the results. But let me know what you think.